2 years into our marriage, yet I still considered us newlyweds. 2 years after the day we vowed to spend forever together, my heart sank at the sight of my wife, unashamedly declaring, "I'm pregnant." The father was my boss. "Blas, we should wait to have kids. I want to enjoy our time as newlyweds." Those words I told my wife when we got married echoed in my mind. My name is Ryan Kitchener. I turned 30 this year. I married my wife, Susan, 2 years ago. We met at work. We were in different departments, but worked for the same company. Every time we crossed paths in the hallways of our office building or in the elevator, I thought to myself, what a beautiful woman she was. When a coworker introduced us, I was thrilled. My heart did a little victory dance. I was always looking for an opportunity to talk to Susan, and I wasn't going to let this chance slip by. I watched every movie and read every book she recommended. My attempts to close the distance between us slowly but surely started to bear fruit. Back then, it seemed Susan had a boyfriend, but I didn't ask too much about him. I indicated that it didn't matter to me. Even now, I'm amazed at my own tenacious efforts. Susan quit her job by her own volition and is now a stay-at-home wife. I'm happy that she's keeping our home safe. Susan goes to cooking and flower arrangement classes, has leisurely lunches with her friends, and lives a comfortable and relaxed life. 2 years into our marriage, around the time when our parents started hinting about wanting to have grandchildren, an unbelievable incident occurred. The busy season of overtime was over, and I was in high spirits, leaving work on time. Thinking that Susan must have been feeling lonely due to my busy schedule, I bought her favorite cake on my way home for the upcoming long weekend. We could go on a mini vacation. I picked up brochures of nearby tourist spots at a travel agency by the train station. I'd ordered takeout so Susan wouldn't have to worry about making dinner. I'm home. I managed to get off work early today. I spoke to Susan while taking off my shoes at the front door. She came running from down the hall. She seemed surprised at my early return. As I explained about ordering takeout for dinner, I handed her the cake she loves. But there was something off about Susan. "Is something wrong?" I asked as I handed her my suit jacket. She gave a small nod. There was a sullen look on her face. As I sat down on the living room couch, Susan took a seat in front of me. Then she said words that I couldn't believe. "I'm pregnant, and I want us to break up." The words hit me like a blunt force to the back of my head. I could never have imagined hearing such words from Susan. Susan, and I don't have any kids. She was the one who had convinced me, who wanted a child right after we got married, that it was too soon. Respecting her wish to enjoy our newly life a little longer, I had promised to wait for her sake. We were careful these past 2 years, so what's this new life in her belly? I want a divorce. It's for the child. I never wanted to hear the phrase, "for the child," from Susan's mouth in such a situation. I thought it would be a phrase we'd use joyfully together as a couple. Susan was looking at me expressionlessly, but it seemed her intention to divorce was firm. "Please sign this. I want a divorce for the sake of my child." Susan laid out divorce papers with her signature already on them before me. The witness section was signed by Susan's parents. She had already consulted her parents. I want to know who the father is, but I couldn't afford to lose my cool here. I have my pride too, I thought. "So, you're serious?" In response to my question, Susan gave a firm nod. After that, I only remembered concentrating hard not to let the pen shake in my hand. She carefully folded the signed divorce papers, and it seemed she had already packed her things. A large suitcase in hand, she headed for the door, and I had no words. Susan didn't look back at me again. Her feelings for me were gone. It was clear from her expression. She disappeared into the twilight, pulling her suitcase behind her. All I could do was gaze at Susan's retreating figure. That night, I drank alone until I fell asleep. Because I had passed out drunk in the living room, it seemed I had caught a cold. I was hit by a headache and chills, which are different from a hangover. I called my workplace. I told them I would be taking a sick day to reflect on last night. I wondered if it was all a dream, but there were the liquor bottle and that pen on the living room table. It wasn't a dream. Susan really did betray me and left. When reality hit again, my chest throbbed with pain, and I realized the saying, "The cuter they are, the harder they fall," is really true. I can't believe how much I hate Susan, who I loved so much. I have to find the other man. I spent a day raging through the belongings Susan left behind. With that thought in mind, the ring and bracelet I gave her when we were dating were still in the jewellery case. I found the wedding ring in the trash can. What was she thinking when she threw the ring into the trash can? Just imagining that made me feel dizzy. I spent all day looking for clues about the other man, but in the end, I only succeeded in raising my fever. Despite all this, I kept rummaging through her belongings incessantly, feeling as if I'd fall apart if I didn't stay busy. But because I was in such a state, my health didn't fully recover in a day. In the end, I ended up taking a week off from work. Somehow, when I managed to get myself back to work, my coworkers knew about my divorce, even though I hadn't told them yet. "How are you feeling, Ryan? You're such a softy getting sick just because of a divorce." My direct boss, Tom Gary, strolled up to me with a smirk. Gary was always the type to nitpick and make life difficult for me. His overly pretentious demeanour, along with his sleazy behaviour, was always off-putting. As I begrudgingly endured his company, I suddenly realised he mentioned the divorce. Then it hit me. Before she got married to me, Susan and Gary used to work in the same department. "Oh, didn't Susan tell you about the divorce? Or was your tiny little pride too precious for that?" He sneered, and the pieces fell into place. "Are you the father of Susan's unborn child?" I asked in a low, grating voice. Gary, in an adjusting tone, confirmed. That's right. He was completely mocking me. For a moment, I didn't realize what I had done. When I came to, Gary was sprawled across the room, a toppled chair and scattered desk items around him. I felt a dull pain in my clenched fist. The ensuing chaos was like something out of a festival. Some people were helping Gary up. Others were trying to restrain me. Gary, despite being hit, was laughing. He was laughing at the future trouble. I had just invited him. He had baited me into it. Gary is the grandson of the founder of our company. I had just punched a future company executive. Of course, I was suspended, and then inevitably I was fired. I became an unemployed man, dumped by his wife. My life after that was a wreck. I knew I needed to look for a job to survive, but my actions couldn't catch up with my thoughts. I started drinking during the day, and as night fell, I would start drinking all over again. I suppose this is what they call self-destructive. I had no motivation to do anything. My only consolation was that I had savings. I wanted to thank the old me for being diligent in saving money while living such days. After about a month, a surprising visitor arrived. At first, I pretended I wasn't home. But 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. Once again, I pretended not to be home. The doorbell rang again an hour later. Annoyed, I wondered who on earth could be bothering me. As I reluctantly opened the front door, I found an unfamiliar woman standing there. She stood tall, gazing at me with a piercing stare. I felt like I was being judged, and I quickly averted my eyes. May I ask your name?" I asked. The woman staring at me had a dignified appearance and a face that suggested a strong will. Suddenly, I felt embarrassed about the alcohol on my breath. I hadn't even bothered to shave. "Are you the ex-husband of that woman?" she asked abruptly, nearly stopping my heart. She didn't beat around the bush. She was Gary's wife, and that woman she mentioned must have been Susan. Well, I stuttered, at a loss for words. The woman deeply bowed her head. She introduced herself as Lillian, just as I'd imagined. She was Gary's wife. The neighborhood ladies passed by, shooting me curious glances. I always found these gossip-loving folks a bit hard to deal with. "Please come inside." I hastily invited Lillian in, trying to avoid the gossip that would inevitably spread otherwise. "Thank you," she replied and walked into the house without hesitation. Of course, I hadn't done any cleaning at all. As I led her into the chaotic living room, she began to silently gather the trash scattered around. "I can clean that up myself," I tried to insist, but she cut me off. "We can't have a serious conversation in this mess, can we? If you're not going to help, please sit down," she snapped. So, I sat up straight. I sat down on the couch and watched in silence as she went about tidying up. "Why don't you go wash your face?" she suggested. I got startled by her words and dashed off to the bathroom. I washed my face quickly. I was shocked at the sight of myself in the mirror. I looked like a stranger. I washed my face and shaved. I washed and combed my hair for the first time in a long time. I felt a little bit more like a human. When I returned to the living room, the cleaning was already finished. The trash had been bagged up and set out in the hallway. "I used your kitchen," Lillian said as she offered me a cup of tea. She seemed quite reliable for Gary's wife. "Thank you. I feel like a human again," I said, surprised by how naturally my gratitude spilled out. Lillian gave me a faint smile in response to my words, but in the next moment, her smile disappeared. "My husband asked me for a divorce. He said it's because he has a child now." She cut straight to the chase. It seemed she disliked beating around the bush. "I was told the same thing by my wife. I'm already divorced. When I told her it was none of my business anymore, she let out a deep sigh. It seemed that the affairs of her husband, Gary, weren't a new occurrence. Apparently, he had resolved a previous scandal with money, and it was also with Susan. Susan took the payoff, and she immediately married me. She told me she got married as proof of ending her relationship with Gary. He had attempted to resolve it with money this time as well, but Susan wasn't budging. From Lillian's tone, I could tell she still loved Gary. She wanted to somehow get rid of Susan. So I get what you want to say. But you want to mend things with Gary and not get a divorce. This man had cheated on her twice with the same woman and even had a child with her. Could she still be holding on to feelings for him? When I asked if she didn't want a divorce, Lillian looked a little surprised. She had an expression as if divorce hadn't even crossed her mind. "Do you really think you can start over from this point?" Even I think it's a bit mean to ask, but I found her expressions and attitude intriguing. I wanted to know what Lillian's response would be. With a small smile, she simply said, "We're married after all." I don't know why, but I felt defeated. In the end, I asked Lillian to leave that day, agreeing to discuss it again another time. The day after Lillian's visit, Gary came over. It seemed he had heard from Lillian about her meeting with me yesterday. As a former boss, I decided to invite him into the living room. Gary looked around the living room and then laughed. "Find something funny?" I asked. Lillian cleaned up, didn't she? Gary said this with amusement in his voice. I hadn't noticed, but it seemed that Lillian's style was reflected in how she tidied up. Feeling the vibe of understanding between them irritated me. When I asked him what brought him here, Gary said he had a request for me. He wanted me to convince Lillian to divorce him. The request left me shocked. According to Gary, Lillian can't have children. He loves children and needs an heir. The fact that Susan is pregnant was a golden opportunity. He offered me a reward for convincing Lillian to agree to a divorce and placed a thick envelope in front of me. The sight of him trying to solve everything with money made me sick. I want kids, and that's something Lillian can't give me. At these words, I lost my patience. I grabbed him by the collar, but Gary was still laughing. He probably thought he wouldn't get punched twice. Just as I was about to swing my fist, a soft hand gently grasped my raised fist. "Is my husband worth punching?" Lillian said. She had followed Gary. "You left the front door wide open. That's careless," as she scolded me. I involuntarily lowered my fist, and I muttered, "Okay." My grip on Gary's collar loosened, momentum extinguished. "So, you want a child, huh?" Lillian murmured as she looked at Gary as he nodded. She pulled out some documents from her bag. They were divorce papers. "Are you satisfied now?" Lillian smiled as she offered the papers to Gary. Her smile was stunningly beautiful, almost eerie. It looked as if it could forgive anything and everything, yet at the same time, it was as if it could send someone straight to hell. As Gary took the divorce papers, his fingers lightly traced over the back of her hand. It felt like I've seen something I shouldn't have, and I quickly averted my eyes. "Thank you." Gary left these words behind, swiftly striding towards the front door. "We're enemies now, aren't we?" Gary waved without turning around to her words. It seemed that he had accepted her declaration of war. Once Gary was out of sight, Lillian turned back to me. "Shall we lick our wounds together? But first, let's have our revenge." We both separately demanded compensation from Gary and Susan. They're well off no matter how much we demand. They're likely to pay. I asked my lawyer to proceed with all matters simultaneously because I wanted them to suffer, even if just a little. This would be just a bit of payback. Child's play, really. After demanding the compensation, Susan finally came crying. It seems Gary will pay his own part, but he won't pay Susan's portion. They're not married yet, so it's only natural. But it seems there's more to it. At a meeting between the four of us, Gary started saying that I was also to blame for Susan's affair. He claimed it was a result of making her feel lonely due to my constant work. "You sure have a knack for blowing smoke, don't you?" "It won't work on me." Lillian pulled out was a report on Gary's personal investigation. The investigation had apparently been requested by Gary's parents. Susan and Gary had been involved before my marriage to her, and at one point, Susan had accepted a settlement to sever ties. However, behind the scenes, the relationship continued. Apparently, my marriage to her was suggested by Gary as a camouflage. I love my work, and I'm a bit insensitive. For them, having an insensitive husband was very convenient. Moreover, since I was working with Gary, they could always keep an eye on me. The report Gary's parents had put together by spending a considerable amount of money was unbelievably detailed. Lillian reads through the contents in a steady voice. The colour drains from Gary and Susan's faces. The first to break was Susan. She starts to scream, almost hysterically. "Stop it. Stop it now. It's not good for the baby if you stress yourself out so much." At our reprimand, Susan flinched, being stared down by Lillian's icy eyes. Susan fainted on the spot. Gary, panicking, cradled Susan in his arms, to which Lillian smiled, already surrendering. That's a shame. I believe Lily and truly love Gary. Love and hate are two sides of the same coin. The deeper the love, the deeper the hate. It seemed Gary understood that too. In the end, I had no role in the discussion, and the meeting ended with Lillian dominating the conversation. At the end, Lillian laughed at me, saying, "That's it." Afterwards, the reason for my divorce became well known at work. I was the one who had leaked it to my co-workers. The company wanted to cover it up, but it was too late. In the end, Gary was sidelined at work and had no place in his family. After remarrying, Susan is struggling with in-law issues. It seems that Gary's parents, who like Lillian, are hardly treating Susan, who took Lillian's place after driving her out. I think it serves her right. When everything about the alimony and other issues have been settled, I invited Lillian for coffee. She told me about her current situation, working at a friend's company while living alone. I can't have children, so I need to be self-sufficient. I don't feel the same fear I did back then. When I see Lillian speaking with such a sincere expression, "Your reason for being independent seems a bit off," I disagreed with Lillian. She looked at me surprised. It was the first time I had strongly insisted on something. I noticed she was still wearing her wedding ring. It was proof she hadn't forgotten Gary. Summoning my courage, I decided to give her the words I had been practicing since last night. "I don't mind." She looked at me with a puzzled expression. I took a deep breath. Then I asked her to wait until I found a job, as I was applying to be Lillian's boyfriend. Lillian and I will definitely work out. We understand each other's pain. I will never hurt you. From my expression, she seemed to understand that I wasn't joking. She looked down once and then chuckled. "I'm quite a handful, you know." "I am well aware of that," I replied. I gently traced the back of her hand with my finger. It seemed like she was recalling something as she squinted her eyes. She gently brushed off my finger and then took off her ring. I felt it was her way of breaking away from her past. Then she lightly touched my hand, her delicate fingers tracing the back of my hand. It felt like her love was flowing into me from her finger. "I'll make you happy, so please wait." Lillian laughs as if she's bursting with joy. I swore in my heart to always protect that smile. What did you think? Subscribing to the channel will encourage us to produce more. See you in the next video.
Verify the documents and then compile them into a report. What is this, I wonder? Can you even perform a basic document check after decades of work? Really? Why does he feel the need to speak down to everyone just because he is the manager? Professionalism. No, even elementary human decency has its merits. To believe that he succeeded in becoming a manager while lacking the ability to utilize formal language. If you've got it, make sure it's done by today. No. As previously stated, I have other things to accomplish. That is irrelevant. I'll have to terminate you if you are unable to comply with my instructions. Fired? Is he really expecting me to follow his instructions? He's younger, but that doesn't mean I'm rebelling. I wouldn't mind taking on the work if it were really essential. However, the documents he gave me were dated 5 years ago and were found on the back shelf. Why compile paperwork for a business that we no longer do business with? I didn't intend to participate in this farce, and it was a waste of time. Hey, did you receive a summary of those documents? You said you would turn them in yesterday. Why am I still not seeing them? Is it necessary to tell you to do everything? I haven't handled the materials in any way. I don't intend to waste my time, as I stated yesterday. So you're saying you can't follow the orders of your manager. Please carry out your managerial duties appropriately if you intend to use your authority in that manner. Do you believe a boss should be giving out pointless assignments? That's when I made my position known. Oh, I'll show you what a manager does if you're going to talk to me in that manner. We don't need people who are outdated like you. You've been fired. John is my name. I'm 63 years old now. Work is all I have left, but I'm still working. 20 years ago, my wife of the same age died in a vehicle accident. I've been by myself ever since we didn't have any kids. However, working kept me inspired and needed by the president and firm. I was making ends meet by working part-time jobs 45 years ago, right after I graduated from high school. Welcome, Ma. Only you today? In reality, I anticipate having 3 team members. Can you get us a table? Certainly. I was working at a steakhouse part-time. I appreciated my life despite the poor income because the owner was a really kind man. With 80% of its customers being regulars, this store was well established. The firm was sustained because of its regular customers. However, the owner invited me over one day. I'm sorry to spring this on you suddenly, but I'm thinking of closing the shop at the end of this year. What? Every year, the number of clients has decreased, and I'm getting to the point where I can no longer work. I apologize, but you'll have to find another work. I was honestly taken aback by this sudden news from the owner. Sure, I knew the shop would close eventually since he hadn't taken any apprentices, but I hadn't expected it to come this soon. I had never thought about the future, couldn't even imagine doing anything other than working there. I knew the day would come, but the owner gave me a 6-month notice. From that day, I started looking for a job, but it wasn't going well. Today, I'm alone, so I'll take the counter seat, please. Understood. That day, a regular customer, company president, came in, and I seated him at the counter as usual. I served water and a towel, then let him enjoy his steak. It was the same service as always. Can't find a job? What? I heard from the owner about closing the shop. You'll be out of a job, right? Yeah, that's right. With just a high school diploma and no real skills, it's been tough finding someone willing to hire me. How about joining us then? As a part-timer. If you show good results, I'll make it a full-time position. I doubted my ears for a moment. Was this person serious? He's talking about hiring me with no skills and just a high school education. That seemed like a risk. But are you sure about me? The owner has been taking care of me for a long time. He consulted me about you. I can't just stand by and do nothing, right? The owner had gone to the back to get some ingredients and wasn't there. But to think he was this concerned about me. The owner did. I believe in the importance of connections between people. I became good friends with you here, which must be fate. I want to extend a helping hand to a young person who was willing to try hard. When I started my company, the owner helped me out with a lot of advice, and I knew it would come back around someday. The president's words resonated with me. Connections between people. The owner was good to the president, so the president was good to me. Is that how the chain reaction works? I naturally accepted it and decided not to waste the opportunity the president had given me. After that, I started working at the president's company as soon as the owner's shop closed. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you. It'll be different from working at the steakhouse, but do your best, okay? I'll do my best to meet your expectations. The president trusted me, and I worked hard to live up to that trust. Of course, I had never done sales before, so at first, I really struggled to get results. But thanks to the training provided by my colleague and the support from my owner, I quickly grew as a salesperson and was able to produce decent results a year after starting. After that, I created new sales opportunities and used those connections to secure more and more contracts. President: It's just a 3-month contract for now, but I managed to secure a deal with Smith Industries. Really? They said they'd consider future dealings based on our performance over these 3 months, so let's keep up the good work. I studied hard while working on how to secure contracts and gain trust. With each experience, I came to understand various things. Thanks to that, I was able to secure some significant contracts for the company, and I truly enjoyed my work. Then one day, when I was 30, the president called me in. "Sorry for calling you in suddenly. I wanted to talk to you about a promotion." "A promotion. You've performed beyond my expectations, and I see you as a necessary asset for our company's future. So I was thinking, how about taking on a managerial position? Having someone with your track record in charge could help the company grow." A managerial position. I was genuinely pleased with the offer of promotion and would have accepted it immediately under normal circumstances. However, I still wanted to work on the front lines. I considered my job in sales to be my true calling. I prided myself on my communication skills and my ability to win trust and secure contracts more than anyone else. That's why I wanted to work where I could fully utilize those skills. Thank you. Being offered a promotion is truly an honor, but I want to continue working in sales for this company. Also, after observing my colleagues and owners, I don't think I'm cut out for managing people. I see. If that's how you feel, how about a raise instead? Anyway, I'm happy as long as you're willing to work for the company. Let's keep up the good work. Of course. I owed a lot to the president for helping me, and I had always intended to work my hardest for the company. The fact that he offered me a promotion meant he recognized my efforts. That showed I'd made an impact, and I was happy just to have that conversation. I planned to continue producing results and contributing to the president and the company. After all, I was picked up by the president. I was determined to repay that favor over a lifetime. That was my feeling. And so, I continued to deliver results. Before I knew it, 10, 20, 30 years had passed. In that time, I got married. 20 years ago, I lost my wife in an accident. Throughout the tough times in my life, I was always helped by those around me. Somehow, I managed to keep going without losing sight of my life. Even at this age, some might find me odd, not having been promoted and still working as a regular sales employee. But I enjoyed my work and wanted to repay the favor in my own way. Then one day, I've been appointed as the new manager starting today, so I'm counting on everyone. The overall sales performance has been declining, so I'm here to make some reforms. The previous manager had retired, and a new one, in his 30s, had been brought in. He had worked at a company known to the president, and his capabilities were well regarded. But from day one, he declared significant reforms. First off, there are too many employees in the sales department. We'll be trimming the unnecessary force. Of course, those who haven't been performing are included, but the primary target will be the older employees with no future here. So just be prepared. Our workforce was relatively young, but it's true there were salespeople in their 40s and 50s. Maybe he was referring to me, now in my 60s. I had that thought, but there was no use worrying about every little thing. Besides, I had a major task ahead of me. For that reason, I didn't have the time to seriously listen to this young manager's talk. That's what I thought. But, hey, what are you doing? What? I'm preparing for the next negotiation. Do you not realize that's pointless? Didn't you listen to what I said earlier? Or is your hearing so bad you didn't hear it? If I stay silent, he just goes on. But getting angry at someone more than 2 decades younger isn't worth it. What I need to focus on isn't getting upset, but producing results through my work. I plan to deliver results on the project I was working on until retirement. That's what I had decided. I have things to do. Is that all right with you? That's what I'm saying. You don't have any work to do. What job can an old person do? Seriously, can't you even understand that? Huh. Sure, I'm nearing retirement, but what does he know about me? That's the problem with young people these days. Yet, it's something I don't want to say. That's exactly what an old person would say. Still, I don't want to be criticized by people who don't understand what work I do or the achievements I've contributed to this company for things they know nothing about. Don't worry. I won't be a burden. I'll just do my job. This is why I hate stubborn old people. Staying as a regular employee without being promoted until this age speaks for itself, doesn't it? What? You're still a regular employee because you can't do the job right. Ah, so that's the misunderstanding. To someone who knows nothing, I might indeed seem like a regular employee who couldn't get promoted. A useless one at that. It wouldn't be surprising if he thought that way. The company can't fire me even if they wanted to because of lifetime employment. That's probably what he thinks. However, there's probably no one in the company who thinks that way except for this manager. If he understood what kind of work I do, maybe his attitude towards me would change. That's what I thought. However, well, if you really want to work that badly, I'll give you something to do. Here, check these documents and summarize them in a report. What is this? After decades of work, you can't even do a document check. It's not that. Why do I have to do document checking? I thought this kind of work was done by the administrative staff. Are you trying to go against me, the manager? You've got some nerve. Or do you think you're better just because you're older? Really? Just because he's the manager, why does he feel entitled to talk down to me like that? Indeed, hierarchical relationships are necessary, but before that comes professional manners. No, even basic human decency. Can he understand something so simple? It's surprising he made it to become a manager without being able to use even formal language. If you've got it, finish it by today. No, like I said before, I have things I need to do. That doesn't matter. If you can't follow my orders, I'll have to fire you. Fired? Did he really think I would just comply? Of course, I'm not resisting because he's younger. If it were truly necessary work, I would take it on without complaint. But the documents he handed me were from the back shelf, and they're from 5 years ago. Why summarize documents for a company we've already ceased dealing with? It was a waste of time, and I had no intention of playing along with this farce. Just get to work already. He left after saying that, but I had more important work to do. I needed to prepare for negotiations and didn't want to waste time on such trivial matters. Fortunately, my desk was out of the manager's sight, and I spent the day working on my own tasks. The next day, "Hey, did you get those documents summarized? You promised to submit them yesterday. Why haven't I seen them yet? Do you need to be told to do everything?" I haven't done anything with the documents. As I said yesterday, I have no intention of wasting my time. So you're saying you can't follow the orders of your manager. If you're going to wield your power as the manager like that, then please do the job of a manager properly. Is assigning meaningless tasks something you think a manager should be doing? Knowing his personality, I was aware that saying this would only make him angry. But staying silent would only escalate things further, and I had no intention of wasting my precious time until retirement on such trivialities. However, my words seemed to have ignited his fury completely. He lost all composure, his face turned red, and he shouted at me. "Oh, if you're going to say that, then I'll show you what a manager's job is. We don't need old-timers like you. You're fired." Are you making decisions based on your emotions? Isn't that the last thing someone in a managerial position should do? You disobeyed your superior, so it's only natural, right? As a manager, I have a right to fire you. Pack your things and leave today. I hadn't expected him to go this far in his anger, but he seemed serious. What a problem. I've never dealt with someone like this before. But I understood his personality then. Continuing to argue logically with him was pointless. If you insist, I'll leave immediately. What about the handover? Your work is trivial and unnecessary. No one needs it, so there's nothing to hand over. What are you even talking about? That's my line. What was he talking about? I wish he would stop being so selfish. Was that also an order from the manager? Since he said there was no need for a handover, then I won't do anything. So you're saying there's no need for a handover? Of course. It's better for us if an old-timer like you disappears quickly. Understood. Since that's what he wanted, I left as he wished. But whatever happens next is not my concern. I was fired by the manager. It's up to him to fill the gap I leave. Understood. In that case, I'll leave the succession and everything else in your hands. With that, I'll take my leave. Leave. Someone like you is better off quietly enjoying retirement at home. I couldn't help but be amazed at the manager looking down on me until the very end. But that's just his character. People like him don't change because you say something. It's a waste of time and effort to even try. So I'll just do as he says. As he put it, I'm just a regular employee, and I got fired for defying the manager. That's all there is to it. However, I wonder if the other employees realize how bad it is for me to be leaving in this manner. Before I could leave the company, I was stopped. Are you really going to leave? I got fired, so I have to. But it seems the new manager will take care of everything, so don't worry. But if you ever have any trouble with work, feel free to reach out to me. You can always contact me. I said this and left, but my colleague looked quite anxious. It's understandable. But my place is no longer at the company, so it can't be helped. I thought of it as an early retirement. As I reached home, I knew I needed to say goodbye to the president too, but I decided to wait and see. I just couldn't believe that this was the end of it. A week later, hey, who's handling this $1 billion deal? That would be John. Have you forgotten? You fired him last week because he was old. What? He was in charge of such an important deal? No wonder the performance wasn't improving. It's all because the old folks were covering for each other. Even after I was gone, it seemed the manager had been bad-mouthing me. But I couldn't care less. What he thinks of me doesn't matter anymore. Let him say what he wants. However, I had been waiting quietly for a week. I knew exactly what would happen because I was in charge of that deal. So, what are you going to do? Don't worry. I'll handle it myself. Apparently, the manager went to meet with my former client. There was a scheduled negotiation that day. Of course, since he said he would take over everything, I left all the documents with him. But whether he could handle the negotiation was questionable. Nice to meet you. Hello. Is John coming today? Yes, I am Bob Tyler, the new manager. He retired last week, so I'll be taking over. The moment he said that, the faces of our clients stiffened. They must have been wondering why I didn't show up. They must have been quite surprised. Naturally, you'd properly say goodbye to your clients before leaving. I had built a strong relationship with them, so they were likely shocked by the lack of communication from me. Hello. Hello. Ah, thank you for calling. I'm sorry to call suddenly. I heard you retired. Is that true? The client stepped out and then contacted me. They must have never imagined I would leave my job without any notice. Rather than saying I retired, it's more accurate to say I was fired. Fired? The new manager who's there with you. He decided to start firing older employees. I explained everything the manager had said to me. The client was quite surprised, but listened to my story to the end and understood. In this day and age, it's unheard of for someone to be fired in such a manner, so they must have been bewildered. But the fact that they believed me without any doubt showed how much trust I had earned from them. So, that's the situation. We'll start the negotiation now, and I'll get back to you later. I'm truly sorry for ending things this way. It was irresponsible of me, and I apologize. No need to apologize. It's not your fault. But rest assured, we'll make sure he takes full responsibility. The client said this and then hung up. I could somewhat predict what would befall that manager after this, but it seemed things turned out far worse than I had imagined. Could you please leave now? Excuse me? I thought we were here to discuss the renewal of our contract. Is there a problem with the documents? That's why I'm asking you to leave. We had you come today to discuss the renewal, but we have no intention of renewing our contract. Dismissing people unjustly and creating a workplace as you please is a clear abuse of power. We cannot do business with a company that allows such people. The moment the client said this, the manager was at a loss for words. He might not have understood exactly what was happening, but he must have realized the client knew he was abusing his power. The manager must have struggled then, confronted with such accusations by a client he thought knew nothing. How? How did you know about this? And if we don't renew the contract, it will be my responsibility. I imagine the manager was swamped with various anxieties, but this was just the beginning. Given my long-standing relationship with your company's president, I'll ensure your case is thoroughly reviewed. The position of a division head in a large corporation is significant. After all, if the top fails, everything below crumbles. Please wait. What exactly are you talking about? I don't understand. And if we don't renew the contract, I'll be in trouble. We would have considered renewing the contract if someone like you hadn't shown up. But we can't trust you. Business is built on trust. We had trust in the person who was handling our account before, not you. Perhaps if another salesperson had come, we might have considered it. But we can't trust someone who makes unjust dismissals. Hearing the words unjust dismissal repeatedly, the manager must have finally understood his situation. It was revealed that he had unjustly dismissed me. From the client's words, it was clear how much trust I had built and how much I had contributed to the company. And then, he probably understood just how much of a positive impact I could have had on the company if I were still there. Please wait. I never thought you and he had such a relationship. The company's performance was declining. I thought the only option was to downsize the workforce. With no future, you tried to reduce expenses for the company's sake. So it wasn't for personal gain or out of emotion, but purely for the company's benefit. Of course, I wouldn't do something like that for personal reasons. That would be an abuse of power. I believe I understand my role as a manager. The manager might have seen this as a way out of the dire situation. From the brink of hell, a fragile thread dangled down. That's the situation. I believe he was determined to cling to that thread and escape hell at all costs. With that mindset, the manager frantically continued making excuses, unaware that those very excuses were tightening the noose around his own neck. So let me ask you one question. Who do you think is the least necessary person for the company in the current situation? The least necessary person. That would be those who haven't produced results. I guess not producing results doesn't mean there's no potential. New employees can't produce results immediately, and nurturing them is the job of the company and management. A wrong answer could sever the thread to escape from hell. The manager scrambled to find the answer the client wanted, but there was no way he could answer such a question. Cut the upper management salaries. Would that be the best answer? A business is about money, and those who work primarily for money won't put in their best effort without compensation, especially not the upper management, whose responsibilities and workload only increase. Then it's not about those who don't produce results, but about eliminating negative elements like you. Removing the negatives naturally improves the company, don't you think? That's what you said and thought you did, right? Removing the least necessary people is truly the best approach. Confronted by the client's words, the manager was shocked. He hadn't expected to be criticized like this. Promoted to become a manager at a young age, he must have felt quite pleased with himself. But merely stepping on others doesn't make one a competent manager. I continued working in sales until this age precisely because I was trusted with the company's most significant deals. Though I say it was entrusted to me, I was the one who got the deal sealed. Someone who fires others just for being old, without understanding the value of experience, isn't fit to be a manager. Being unfit for the role means getting paid as a manager is a waste. New employees or those with lesser skills aren't expected to carry such heavy responsibilities. However, if one earns a high salary and bears the title of manager, they must be stripped of their position if they fail to fulfill their duties. You get what I'm saying, right? Since you tried to do the same thing, now that you're on the receiving end, you can't say you don't understand, right? No, that's not. Got any excuses? I'm wrong. It's not that. But then you know what to do, right? What should be done for the company's sake? The manager likely didn't expect such confrontation. He turned pale and fell silent. But it was the manager himself who clearly stated that unnecessary people for the company should be fired. Then it's imperative to see that executed. If the manager was now considered the most unnecessary within the company, and if his own statements held true, then he should be the one to resign. But I have a family. Weren't you acting for the company's sake? Are you going to bring personal issues into this? Or are you going to admit that firing John was for personal reasons and not for the company's benefit? I thought old people were useless. I'm really sorry. The manager finally admitted his wrongdoing. My dismissal was unjust. While anyone could see this, the admission that mattered most needed to come from him. All right. I'll report this to the president. Take care. No, please. That's all from me. The client then dismissed the manager. According to the president, the client called later to relay everything. Consequently, the president decided to demote the manager. Upon hearing this, the manager was outraged, but the president detailed my hiring and efforts. The president believed in the manager and hired him out of pity after losing his job due to his acquaintance's company going bankrupt. The president had given the manager a chance out of sympathy, seeing a bit of me in him. However, focused only on results, the manager faced demotion. Due to his anger, it was his own doing. It couldn't be helped. I appreciated the president's opportunity and worked hard to repay that kindness. The manager took his position for granted. By then, the outcome was already decided. Later, the president contacted me, and I was able to return to the company. Busy since my return, I've committed to fulfilling my duties. The connections between people can sometimes greatly influence one's life. That's why it's crucial to value those connections, or life may take a turn for the worse. To prevent that, I want to live my life never forgetting the kindness shown to me.